All right. So, welcome back to another edition of the Nerdcast. My mic just went up.
No, his mic went up.
Oh,
So you're not the only one with technical difficulties.
wow. I can't believe that actually happened. My mic died. I don't know what is going on. My board is
Uh-oh.
maybe it's time for a new board. Welcome back to another edition of the Nerdcast. My name is Dan Chelsea, and today we are joined by none other than our greatest co-hostess to ever be born on the face of this planet. That's right, Chelsea Thompson. Say hello.
Man, the oversells are just getting, I don't know how I'm going to live up to that.
It's not an oversell.
Oh, it totally is. Like, for those who don't watch live, for those who are listening later, just to confirm how much of an oversell this is right now, I'm currently sitting on my couch in my sweatpants eating Indian food while we do the podcast.
Well, this just goes to show you how good she is. If she can pull off a podcast while in her sweatpants, with a what is that? Just a scarf or a shawl?
It is a blanket because it was pouring cats and dogs all day here. So I decided I need some curry for dinner to warm up, and I'm currently huddled under a blanket on my couch.
See, I think if you can pull all that stuff off and still be the greatest co-hostess ever to be born, I think that's just that's a sell right there. I think it's all right. So there you go. Welcome back to Chelsea. We also have joining us today. We have Ray Gun Wizard. So I'm gonna get you guys to all introduce yourselves right now. So we'll start with MacIntosh there.
Hey, so I'm Eddie MacIntosh, and I do most of the behind-the-scenes stuff for Ray Gun Wizards.
And I'm GM Weatherby, and I'm the Dungeon Master and kind of the owner of the set and everything like that.
I'm Aaron Peterson. I'm one of the players and try to help out whenever I can.
Awesome. So we are going to talk quite a bit about Ray Gun Wizard and sort of the RPG live stream thing that you guys got going on, all that kind of fun stuff a little bit later. But first off, we'd like to, sort of get to know each other a little bit more. So how is your week so far? I'm going to start with Eddie there.
Oh, well, none of my audio gear works anymore. So
apparently mine doesn't either. So, I mean, there.
Yeah, that's how it is. So many technical difficulties.
That's the typical how things go. And how about yourself? Sorry, I'm trying to do 6 things at one time here.
No worries. So my week's going okay. Just work the day job and make Dungeons and Dragons monsters on the side. Yeah, that kind of thing. Not much more time than that.
Yeah, I mean, it's Wednesday, so it's midweek. Sunday was good, Dungeons and Dragons. Monday, work. Tuesday, work. Kids. I got 2. Wife. And I do some design work on the side. Other than that, here I am now.
Woohoo!
Awesome. And I have no idea what's happening on my end here. I got a blank screen. Things are just not going well here. How about you, Chelsea? How's your week so far?
My week's been pretty good. Yeah, I got back from a visit to Edmonton last week, midweek. I was home for a bit looking after my nephew, got to take him out trick-or-treating, and stopped by your house and saw you and your lovely family. Mm-hmm. And so I've been back at the day job, picking up a couple background days on set, and I've got an audition tomorrow, and went up to Peachland over the weekend to help build a barn roof, which was fun. And not looking forward to the rain setting in. but that's what butter chicken and naan are for.
That's what it is right now for you.
Yeah.
Just rain for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
For myself, anyways, I just finished up with Extra Life on the weekend. Of course, I absolutely love Extra Life. I love doing. We went down to West Edmonton Mall, and we did the big Extra Life, Edmonton Extra Life event. We did a lot of live streaming. It was a lot of fun. I had a lot of great, time chatting with a lot of people. I was kind of they put me in there right on the edge so people can be like they're milling about and behind me all the time, and I got to chat with just random people like walking by, and it was a lot of fun. I had a really great time with that. Yeah. Oh, one thing I do want to mention before we kind of get going, and I know probably everybody's been talking about this, but sadly, we're just going to switch topics because we usually don't do this kind of stuff during our shows. We don't usually talk about news and stuff like that. But I think that it was fairly important to mention that Stan Lee had passed away this week, and I know I was incredibly sad by the sounds of that. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on Stan Lee in his life and sort of just sort of what he kind of meant to either you guys or to I know from myself anyways, he was such a huge influence on me growing up. I was reading his comic books and his characters. Like Spider-Man has always been my ultimate favorite character ever. So I'm just kind of curious on what your guys' thoughts on kind of his legacy.
Oh man, 95 years old, created cultural icons. Now that is a hell of a run. Hell of a run. I don't think you can complain. I think you can complain one bit, man. It's sad that he's gone, but
it's amazing that we still that we are just going to continue on, and we're just going to we have all that awesome stuff from him, and that's just going to live on, which is incredible.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I gotta say, for one, I got to see him at a couple of the expos speak, and he's, for being in his 90s, he's got such energy. Like the character you see him in the movies when he's doing his cameos is basically who he is, it seems. And it's nice to have been able to go see that, especially growing up on like Marvel comics very specifically. Like I said, like you said, like grew up on that stuff.
Yeah. How about yourself there, Eddie?
Yeah, I think he did something amazing. He helped create something that changed basically global society. It's a huge thing. It's not just comics anymore.
Oh yeah,
that was the thing. Like he branched out so much from just even doing comics. Like it's movies. It's like it's seeped into every part of our culture, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at when Marvel became a thing, it was still something just for the kids, and now what would be considered pop culture even just 10 years ago is mainstream culture.
I mean, look at the movies. I mean, each of those movies makes about $1 billion. Huge money. I mean, who doesn't go and see them? Pretty much everybody, right?
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Chelsea?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I love about him is how his imagination inspired so much imagination in everybody else. I mean, the future generations of people who are writing and drawing comics now who were inspired by his imagination, and like you said, the expansion into cartoons and movies and what that means for the imaginations of people now who go to sit in a theater and leave, and you know where that takes them and transports them to.
Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We do have a comment here, and it is from Dog Daytona, and he said, "It's a sad moment for all people who had an impact by this amazing person. With both sides of the story about him, he was still an icon, hero in everyone's eyes. He was truly iconic. I absolutely love him, and I can't say enough about the impact that he's had on my life, and I'm sure with so many. But I also just wanted to make sure that we just took a little bit of a moment here on the show, because I mean, for myself personally, he was just a huge impact. So I kind of wanted to make a little bit of a gesture to that.
Well, and so much of what we do is talk about things that he created.
Yes, exactly.
on our show. Our show wouldn't exist without the amazing, geeky, nerdy universe that he, helped bring to life. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and like you said earlier, we've also had the pleasure of seeing him at the Calgary and Edmonton Expos and all those fun times that you get to see him on stage, and he's just absolutely fantastic to listen to and talk with, and yeah, it's awesome. So you will be missed, Stan Lee. All right, so moving on, I think that's pretty much it, eh?
For the intro portion of the show.
For the intro portion of the show, I'm gonna probably skip out on the music because I don't trust my soundboard right now.
That's all right. We'll just have to make do with
just visualize it in your mind.
Your melodious voice a cappella.
Yeah, we can make our own music. Yeah.
Sounds accompaniment.
Some good music. It's a talent. It really is.
All right, so this week's episode of the Nerdcast is brought to you by Let's Do Coffee, which is an affiliate podcast on our Alberta Podcast Network, and that's powered by ATB. And if you guys go over to nate.ca/Maji Center, you guys will find this awesome podcast, and this is hosted by Dan Van Vielen and produced by the Maji Center for New Venture and Student Entrepreneurship at NATE. Each episode features an interview with students and entrepreneurs or NATE alumni, and they dive into deep into topics that explore their challenges, questions, and fears involved in operating their companies. And it comes out every 2 weeks, so you guys can look forward to that. Right now, they have just got their third episode up, and they sit down with interior designer Candace Wolf, and they talk about what it's like to be an interior designer and how that plays into her business, and what the challenges that she has faced along the way and where the company is going. So if you want to check out that episode, go to letsdocoffee.libsyn.com, and you will find that episode there. And I'm pretty sure if you go, like I went to my just a podcast player of choice and was able to download it from there. So go check that out on your podcast player of choice. All right, that is it. Moving along. We have the fine folks from oh my goodness, what am I doing here? Ray Gun joining us tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys do, and start off because I know Chelsea really just. I'm going to let Chelsea do this. Chelsea, you go for it. We'll just get it out of the way now.
What are we getting out of the way? What am I starting with? My favorite question?
Your favorite question.
My favorite question. All right. So we'll do it in honor of Stan Lee this evening.
Yes.
Because that man could tell one heck of an origin story. I always like to ask our guests what got them started, where they came from, what was the genesis of their project. So how did you fine gentlemen manage to start an RPG podcast? How did that happen? Inquiring minds will want to know.
Well, is it a live stream? How do you guys define your show?
Well, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons for probably over 20 years now, and Aaron actually played with me for quite a bit of that, starting in high school, and then kind of comes and goes once people have lives and things like that, and now once you get into your 30s, people's lives seem to kind of almost have more time but less time in some ways. It's the weirdest thing, isn't it?
I've got so much more time to be home now, but no time to do anything.
So basically said, okay, how are we going to play Dungeons and Dragons, right? And just getting together to play was kind of difficult. And I had some equipment, that kind of stuff. I mean, I did purchase quite a bit of equipment for the stream itself, but I had a couple cameras and said, well, why don't, I've got some woodworking skills, so why don't we make a custom table, and we can take our game and we can set it up for once a week to stream. And that kind of means everybody has to be there to play. If you're not going to be there to stream regularly, then I guess we'll find somebody else who can. And we actually had a group of about 4 of us, and 5 including me as the dungeon master. And we said, okay, we need a couple more people to do kind of this stream with. So we did a kind of an open audition. We thought we'd get, maybe 20 people or so will show up for this thing. How many did we get, Eddie? We got about 80 something.
It was a little over 100, but only about 80 stayed.
Yeah, so people were coming, saw the lineup, some of them were leaving. So looking for a couple people to put into this podcast, ended up spending the whole day just interviewing people, and the ones that we liked, we kept on kind of a short list in case, because people will come and go. I mean, this is something for fun. Nobody's really making money off this, right? So people will come and go, and we have a huge list of people we can call up and say, hey, you want to be part of this? And that kind of thing. So it pretty much started off as, how can we play Dungeons and Dragons regularly? And said, why don't we put some of this equipment to work? Built that custom table, and had a custom-built world that I've been playing in for many years, and I did a little bit more work to flesh that out a little bit better. But yeah, it was custom world, and decided let's do it. And it was a little bit of a headache trying to get all the audio and all of the programs to work with it, but we finally figured that all out, and it's relatively smooth now. I think we're only occasionally running into some technical difficulties, but
yeah, there's a couple goblins we need to chase down.
There's a few gremlins in the system now and again, but
I think one thing I'm going to note that Kyle hasn't noted is, being that he's got the equipment, it's really just an amalgamation of 2 of Kyle's biggest passions right now. And that is stories, film, and tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
And to be able to combine that together so that we can enjoy playing RPGs and still pursue some aspects of film is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, because you're creating, we play for about 2.5 hours each session. So, I mean, every week we have 2.5 hours of content that we create, and we put it on YouTube, which if you just type in the YouTube machine, Ray Gun Wizard, it'll come up with all of our archive stuff.
That's awesome.
Can you give our listeners and viewers a little recap of your shenanigans and adventurings thus far, the highlights and the lowlights of some of your games?
Well, one of, I don't know if it's a highlight or a lowlight, but one of the characters was killed, I think it was in the second session.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it was the second session. And it was a difficult encounter, but unfortunately the party made several tactical mistakes and a hard encounter, and one of them got dissolved with acid.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that was unfortunate, but that's the way it goes sometimes. I think, though, one of the greatest things is I do NPCs a little bit differently in my campaign. So instead of making because I want things to be about the player characters, not about the NPCs. So when I introduce an NPC that comes along with the party, I don't control them like I would, say, just a faceless character that's playing. They have all the same abilities and everything. What I do is I give the party, okay, you guys have this NPC. These are the abilities that they have. They can do this once per combat. You can put this many hit points. When you guys take damage, you can distribute on them. And then I give the party also faceless NPCs, which would be like the equivalent of your faceless goons, if you will.
Yeah, and then you get Doug out of it, though.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to get to. So I gave them these faceless mercenaries that you have a choice. You can sacrifice a mercenary to make a couple extra attacks on a round with them, or you can sacrifice a mercenary to take damage for the party. And they've had this one mercenary since the very beginning that we've dubbed Doug. And good old Doug. Just can't kill Doug. No.
And I think he's just going to... I don't think we'll ever sacrifice him now.
Yeah, that was one of the tactical mistakes. The character died, and then afterwards it was like, oh yeah, wait a minute. We had that mercenary that we could have sacrificed to save him. No, Doug survived that fight.
You can't name him. That's the problem.
Wow. Now that we named him, we just can't die.
Yeah, don't name the cow if you're going to eat it, right?
That's right.
Guess I better not eat Doug.
Yeah, don't eat Doug unless you're really hungry. I heard he was pretty tasty, though.
Well, Heldrog doesn't eat, so...
That's right. He doesn't.
So, as a DM,
yes.
You want to, you're there to forward the game for the players and the characters, but, do you secretly, feel a little sense of pride or victory when you manage to kill off a character?
No, I don't. Honestly, because we worked on, and this is why I run an authentic game, because the character that my friend Tim was playing was actually a custom class. So it was a custom class that I designed. And we had a big backstory for him and all this kind of stuff that now we don't get to try out this class anymore. He played for 2 sessions. And this whole big backstory just will never get to be. So I would have preferred if he would have lived. But I mean, unfortunately, that's what the dice came up. And, I did give them the resources. I gave them faceless mercenaries and all this kind of stuff to use for the tactics. But unfortunately, things were neglected and forgotten, and it really came down to some tactical errors in the fight. So it wasn't quite just the dice's fault. I did actually roll pretty darn good against them. I will admit that my rolls were coming up pretty strong against the party. But the fight was survivable. There were a couple mistakes, though. But
you can lead your party to water, but you can't make them drink.
That's right.
Well, that sounds like a great origin story to me, and it sounds like you guys have had a pretty good run of things thus far.
So far, it's been going really well. Yep.
Without spoiling it for your players present for this interview, can you tease anything listeners might be getting to see from the play coming up if they tune into future episodes?
Well, we ended off the session last week where they were traveling and there was a strange shadow above them. Ooh. So we're going to see what happens with a strange shadow that just appeared above them. And what ended up happening is there was basically this evil, vile, cursed library that they had entered in. That was probably, the 3rd or 4th session? Yeah. Something like that.
We were so proud of that.
I was so proud of that. But what ended up happening was this library can manifest creatures and things like that, right? Manifest these evil entities and so forth. And when you have your starting character gets a starting list of equipment, and one of the girls in her starting list of equipment was a bag of flour. So things came to it where they needed to make a big fire. And, if you have flour, some kind of dust, it can light on fire, right? So that's what they did in this library and ended up lighting the whole thing on fire. So they were in the same area of this library for some time. Underneath there are these catacombs underneath of it that they were stalking, but this whole library was smoldering for days and days. And last session, it ended up manifesting some horrible inferno manifestation that now is running amok on the countryside and lighting the whole forest on fire. So
goddamn 30-foot tall flaming monster with a skull head.
Yeah. So I'm curious to see what ends up happening with that, because that was one thing I never intended to do. But once the library lit on fire, I said, well, this library manifests horrible things. And this huge fire consumed all of these vile books that were in there. So
I gotta say that this is a prime example of how Kyle's games aren't super static; they're fluid. So he didn't know we were going to burn down the library, and now there's a 30-foot tall manifestation magical monster. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not happy about it.
No,
but it's good.
And then I don't know I know the aims of this creature, which is basically destruction. It's pretty much come down to that it wants to destroy things, and that's about it. Lit the forest on fire. Now it's coming for this border town, and the party's right now trying to move as fast as they can, which luckily the creature's relatively slow. So they're trying to get to this border town to warn everybody. And of course, the part of the world that they're in is called Limhoth, which is basically one of the most kind of evil parts of the world where, like I said, these things can manifest and everything like that. And they've been being attacked by creatures of the land, and now they don't know what the end of the session where this strange shadow that just went over them would be. And Aaron's character was alone, and he's actually head of the party, so it looks like he's going to get way ahead and try to warn this town about this thing coming pretty quick here. So at least Aaron has the town's back.
So I got a question here, sort of, because I mean, I've watched your guys' stream. I kind of know what it looks like. It is by far one of the nicest ones, like nice setups that I've seen in a quite a while. What possessed you guys to go that? Like, to me, it seems like you guys went that above and beyond just a normal.
Yeah. I had two, for doing filmmaking and stuff, I actually own three cameras, two identical ones, and they're the Blackmagic Cinema cameras.
Okay, yeah.
So they're actually a higher end camera, and you can use them to stream with. And they have a setting on there where it's a video setting, so it's kind of made for that streaming. So I had one of the pocket cameras, which is a really small one, and that's, if anyone's seen the stream, the camera looks right down on the game board. Mm-hmm. That's a Blackmagic pocket camera. And I actually was able to, a friend who I helped him shoot a movie not too long ago, and he was looking at selling his Blackmagic Cinema camera. And so I got it for a really good deal. So I actually have 3 setup cameras that everything that looks at the players is the same Blackmagic Cinema camera. So it's a pretty high-end camera. And then we have the pocket camera that looks down. And then I invested some money into, if you look, we have the little microphones that sit on our ears.
Yep.
Then I invested some money into that. And our lighting is pretty much done with probably, I think they're about 2 foot by 3 foot soft boxes that sit at the flanks of the table. Because if you were actually to see our table, it's basically a triangular shape with the ends cut off, right? So that's the one big thing where we actually have a really good setup so you can see everything. We have a lot of room around it, so we're not all kind of bunched up together. We have a lot of room. And I pretty much converted my garage into a set. So we have a 24 by 24 garage with the cameras placed and this big table, and we're always sitting at the same table with one another, which is really nice. So
yeah, and the way you guys have the cameras angled and all the shot, it kind of looks like you guys are all laid out in a line there.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like, but we're actually
you're on both sides of the table, right? Is that how it works?
And the 3 sides, yeah. So there's me on the one end, and then the players flank. And how the cameras are set up, basically, whenever they're looking at me. So a lot of times you'll see streams where the players kind of look off in random directions because of their camera placements. That's the big thing, because I do have a cinematography background as well. So figuring out how to place lights and cameras and everything effectively to make the lighting look nice. Like, lighting can look really, really flat on these kind of setups because a lot of times lights are pointed directly at people. Where ours are big soft boxes where the light kind of wraps around people and onto their sides instead.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give you guys some perspective, if you guys are ever watching the stream, and we've got 3 people on each side, and then you got Kyle. So by chance, it ended up that you've got, if you're looking at the stream, it looks like the girls are sitting right next to each other, but in fact, they're actually opposite sides of the table. It's complete opposite, with Kyle basically in between them, is the way it works out.
Nice.
So, like, what was the? I mean, you kind of went through it, but like the whole thing about doing it that way, was it when you decided to do the live stream? I could not do it. You can't do it any other way. Is that what it was like?
It was honestly yeah. I mean, for the investment, really, basically the most expensive thing that cost me additionally, what I didn't have, is that other Blackmagic cinema camera, which I got for a really good price. And then I think I spent about $1,200 on getting the audio gear. And to be honest, the soft boxes, you can get them off of eBay for pretty darn cheap. Like, all of our lighting was only a couple $100 to get our lighting set up. So, I mean, and I work a good day job, so, and I don't have I don't live an extravagant lifestyle by any stretch. So,
almost sound like you say I don't have a life.
Right, Dan, D&D, that's technically a life, I guess. But, so I mean, for that kind of investment, it wasn't all that terrible to spend, probably $2,000 of my money to get everything kind of set up, So, I mean, some people might be a bit, but to me, it was kind of like, well, this is kind of my big hobby, what I do for fun. So it's not that terrible of a price, in my opinion, anyway.
So now I've got a question for Eddie. So you got this amazing setup with all this great equipment. What is running the behind the scenes like? What is the typical running of a game mean for you with all of this equipment?
Because you're not actually on the live stream itself.
He showed up once.
He did. He showed up once to fix a microphone.
Yeah, normally I'm hiding behind one of these curtains we have, because we have 2 curtains, and I'm usually hiding behind the other one at the computer. But unfortunately, the software we use is very temperamental. So it was like 95% setup, and then you just need to keep rebooting the computer over and over until everything works at the same time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that kind of limits how much actual switching and audio effects and graphics and everything, just because whenever I try, it dies, and then we have to stop the stream and restart. So it's mostly just setup and then monitoring the chat right now.
So I'm curious, what kind of software you guys use for the setup then?
We are running all of the audio into Reaper. It's a digital audio workstation program, which is excellent because it only costs $60 for the license.
Yep.
And then we are using that to feed the audio into OBS Studio, which is a free streaming program. So excellent value because it's free. But unfortunately, it just is kind of twitchy. But
it's just temperamental, that's all.
Yeah, when it works great.
Yeah, exactly, eh?
All right, so as the proverbial fly on the wall, even though you're juggling the software, trying to get everything to work all together at the same time, you probably have a really interesting perspective on the games as being an outside observer. Have you noticed any of your compatriots? Do they have particular habits or particular weaknesses as they've been playing, as the game has been going along, that have popped up that you see them do it and you're like, they do that all the time, and it's just one of those weird quirks that you've noticed come out of your friends playing the game?
Oh yeah. Tim and Riley giggle the entire time. You can just quietly hear them giggling the entire time.
It's the wheels, they're spinning constantly, right?
Yeah, but it is also fun interacting with the chat, because we do have 2 tablets set up on the table, like one for each side of the table. So occasionally I will pass on messages to the players that way. So it's been some fun interaction there.
That's awesome. I'm going to get a little bit more curious about some of the interactions you guys have had for your show. How has the response been? I mean, you guys said earlier that, you know, when you had the kind of the call out for the game, you had way more than you guys expected there. How has there been the response for the show that as the live stream has been going on?
To be honest, I mean, it's running a live D&D stream. I mean, it's a pretty niche audience. It picks up slowly. Like, we get a couple new people every week, but it's pretty slow. I mean, like I said, it's a pretty niche kind of thing, and we're slowly building that up. But I think, how many people do we usually get? Like, this week we had quite a few, I think.
We topped out at, what, 15 or
17. We had about 15 viewers for most of last Sunday. Because it is kind of slow, and unfortunately, we are streaming at the exact same time as the official Dungeons and Dragons live stream. Like, it's kind of hard to compete with celebrities.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Like, so people who are out there listening to this show right now, and I know because we tap into a lot of nerdy people. Where can people find this? Like, where are they going to go to find this? Find out more information about you guys, see the live stream, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah. So we stream every Sunday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on Twitch. And just type in Ray Gun Wizard and it'll come right up.
One word.
Just one word. Yeah. And I mean, if you do put 2 words in, it'll still come up. I've tried it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, Ray Gun Wizard. Same thing on YouTube. We have everything archived, and we also have not only our D&D archive there. The first game that we ran, called Animal Earth, is also up there as well. And just type in Ray Gun Wizard into YouTube, and it'll come up with all of our archive stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. We're also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. So occasionally I'll be posting behind the scenes stuff on the Instagram while we're streaming.
It's kind of one of those things where, being that we all have full-time jobs and doing this on Sundays, we're kind of trying to do it a little bit every week to try to get more and more content and more, ideally, I think we'd like to have a website, be affiliated with Twitch would be nice, apparently.
Yeah, that's what we're kind of working on now.
So.
The biggest problem right now is to get an affiliation with Twitch. We basically need one more, to get our hours, we basically need one more stream going. And that's what we're looking at, is in the future doing another stream. But unfortunately, the hardest part is, everybody works and all that kind of fun stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So hopefully in the near future, we'll be able to get another stream with a different game going. Hoping to run the D&D thing, kind of, progress the D&D thing every week, and then have different games on another day that we play. Or a certain amount of weeks we'll play, I don't know, some other game, and then switch it up to different RPGs. Because D&D, I mean, it is the most popular. But there are a lot of other really good RPGs out there, and it's fun stuff to play as well. So
that's awesome. I'm also kind of curious on where Ray Gun Wizard came from. I mean, awesome name, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with that name because I said, well, what's something that would incorporate, because we're not only, like we said, we don't want to just play Dungeons and Dragons. We want to do other kind of games, and science fiction is one of my, well, fantasy is obviously, it's my favorite genre, but science fiction is right up there. So I said, how can I combine a word in one word that would kind of mean that science fiction and fantasy? So I came up with the Ray Gun Wizard, and I kind of created a Ray Gun Wizard character who's their stereotypical wizard with like the felt hat and everything, but instead of a magic wand, he uses a ray gun. So,
man, that's actually an awesome character. I would love to see that character played.
And actually, if you ever watch our stream, you'll see our intro video. At the very end, the Ray Gun Wizard pops up with his cape and his hat and his ray gun. So,
I have a question here from Dog Daytona. He's saying, do you guys timestamp any of the audio?
I'm Ed. you take care of that.
Oh, time stamping.
So, like any kind of events that happen in the game, do you guys, keep a track of that kind of stuff?
I probably should, but I don't.
Yeah, we're trying to get. Eventually, we want to get all of our audio onto a podcast. Right now, we just have the videos on YouTube, and then Twitch. I think the video stays for like a week or something like that, and that's it.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down to the time, and everybody's still working and stuff. So right now, I'm happy that we at least consistently every week we're putting the video up for our YouTube channel. Our next step is to get another stream going so we can get affiliated, and then I'm hoping to be able to get all the audio clips onto a podcast, sooner than later, but we'll see when life permits that. So
I'm sort of kind of also curious on what do you guys think about sort of the resurgence of D&D in the last few years? It was kind of those things where it kind of faded off there for a while, but it seems like the last few years it's really made a big comeback in a major way.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? Like, how, like, is it good for you guys? Are you excited?
Fantastic. Fantastic for us. I mean, you've got the big stream out there, which is the Critical Role, which, I mean, that is one of the reasons through Critical Role that, I mean, you have the resurgence of D&D. And I mean, board games in general have been coming back huge in the last, few years. So, I mean, anything, the more popular D&D is, the more popular streams and all that kind of fun stuff are. I mean, that's better for us, I mean, it is a little unfortunate that D&D is the one that gets everything, because there are a lot of really fun RPGs out there, but it seems like D&D is just kind of the one. I mean, you look at how many streams, I mean, even our stream, the D&D one, has gotten way more attention than our Animal Earth one did. And Animal Earth we had a blast with. I mean, it's a really fun game that we were playing and lots of interaction. That one was a really free flow game, so lots of weird stuff would happen and have to roll with it and everything like that. But that's the only one complaint I think I have is just as far as RPGs go, that D&D is just such a juggernaut that it's kind of dwarfed every other game out there, right?
I think kind of to go back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of like Stan Lee, I was saying like we've gone from pop culture to mainstream. Mm-hmm. And it over the last 10, so say since even fourth edition was released, it was still kind of taboo to be playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, yeah.
And from that point, nerdy stuff, has been getting more and more and more popular and more like it's okay to, I play Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, I read comic books. Yeah, it's okay. Lots of people are getting more and more willing to admit that they do that. And so you're seeing more and more people reaching out for more of these influences from either the past and that, 5th edition coming out. That's, that it's a bridge to like the past Dungeons and Dragons because it's a little more similar.
Yeah. And I think with 5th edition, they really hit the nail on the head with this edition, where it's not overly complicated, but it's not undercomplicated. Like I and Aaron have been playing since the days of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. If you get an even cooler word that you play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and all those kind of rules. But yeah, they really came out with a solid edition that's really, really good for new players. And I know there's quite a few veterans out there who don't like it, but I'm a veteran player and I think it's a great addition because making monsters, which I make a lot of my own monsters and it's a lot easier to do nowadays with the new rules. Same thing with the players. I mean, just having people come in and out playing D&D, noticing what people struggle with and what they find easier. This edition has really opened up the gates for newer players, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna ask. I mean, you guys play on 5th edition, correct?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So I'm sort of curious, like with 5th edition, it really did seem like they really hit the nail on the head with this one, right? Like it really did. Like it took a lot of the stuff that was kind of like sort of the bloat out of the game.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Yeah.
and they really compressed it into a. I think it's a. You can still get what you need to get done. In this
Exactly.
game, right?
Just it's easier. There's a couple of complaints that I have that are minor with it. One of them is pretty much your only bonuses and penalties are advantage and disadvantage, which, you know, getting to roll an extra dice and take the best or getting to roll an extra dice and take the lowest is a pretty big bonus or a pretty big penalty. There's not a lot. I think the only real like modifiers are for like half cover, which is like a +40 armor class or something like that. That's the only real complaint that I have. But to be honest, when you're playing, especially streaming, saying, okay, Aaron, you get advantage to that roll. Not being like, okay, well, you get a +1 for this and maybe a +2 for that. So we'll say it's a +3, right? It just makes things easier, more streamlined. And it's a pretty minor complaint, to be honest, because, I mean, let's face it, we're playing a game where you get to be elves and orcs and dragons and things. So, I mean, you're not looking at realistic there. You're going to hack a dude down with a sword. He takes a critical hit, and he's like, oh, well, that only did a 1/8 of my damage. I took a blow to the head, right? So it's pretty minor. And for all of the advantages it does have, I think those kind of little nitpicky things that I have about it are pretty irrelevant, to be honest.
I mean, I also got it, if I don't mind. Wizards of the Coast bought Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
And their first kick at the can was 4th edition.
No, it was 3rd edition.
Was it 3rd?
Yeah, 3rd edition went. Then, which 3rd edition was basically a progression from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, right.
And it was when I played Advanced D&D for a couple of years. That's how I started D&D. And 3rd edition was amazing.
So
because it was 3rd. It was amazing because it streamlined everything. Everything made sense. It was a logical step. Then Wizards decided, you know what's popular? And everyone said, what's popular, Wizards? They said MMOs. And Wizards then made 4th edition, which was literally an MMO on paper. It wasn't Dungeons and Dragons. If they would have called it something else like D&D Battles or a battle game of some sort, because honestly, for a battle game, if that's all you wanted to do and take the role-playing aspect out of it, it was a good tactical board game is really what it was. But that kind of killed D&D for a while there and allowed Pathfinder, which was based on the Open Gaming license. And they kind of took over that rule set because everyone still really liked D&D. And they kind of made some improvements on it. So for a long time there, they kind of shot themselves in the foot by putting out 4th edition. And then they really redeemed themselves because they came back as a juggernaut with 5th edition now, which they really needed to do because their brand was not doing very well at all with 4th.
Well, and you can see how well it's been doing. Like you just walk into any like comic book store or hobby shop, and you see the stacks of D&D
5th edition, yeah.
5th edition, like you know, from the player hand guide to all the various adventures that you can do, all the various extra books that are out there. You could just see, and then on the amount of like miniatures you can get for the thing, right?
Yeah, they really improved their miniatures quite a bit. They actually have ones you can paint now that are actually a higher quality.
They have their pre what's it called?
Pre-undercoated they have.
Yeah, they got the coating on them, which is super nice. It just saves you that one extra step of, you know, having
exactly.
So yeah, I love it. I love what they've done. I like D&D like the way that it is. I've only played a few games. Take the 20s here. I've played with them and they're awesome. And yeah, it's just great. Like I like what they've done. I typically will play for RPGs is the Star Wars RPG. And that's the one I've been into. And that's just because I really like the dice system that they have in there. The narrative dice. But I mean, there are so many awesome RPGs out there, and yes, D&D is like the big juggernaut right now at this moment. But I encourage anybody out there, if you just kind of like D&D or that kind of style game, there's tons of other RPGs out there. You should just maybe go check them out because I mean, there's so many cool things that people are doing out there right now.
Consult the great Oracle Google. There will be an RPG for you.
Yeah.
If there's something you like in the realm of nerddom, there's an RPG for it.
So I'm going to ask you guys one more question here, just before we kind of do our last little break here. what has been the thing for you guys? Sorry, I kind of lost my question here, but I want to sort of understand more about RPGs for you guys and why it's so important for you guys to do the live stream and for you guys to do just playing RPGs for you guys. What does that mean for you guys?
Well, for me, I've been playing RPGs. I pretty much started introduced to them with a game called Hero Quest back in about grade 5. Yeah, yeah, that's kind of where I started, and I just love the fantasy element of having these miniatures and getting to be warriors and wizards and all that kind of fun stuff and beating up monsters. But I think the biggest thing with RPGs is a social aspect of them. It's not like playing video games or you're sitting there by yourself. I mean, RPGs, you have to have friends to play with.
Oh,
Yep.
it's like a ritual.
Yeah. I used to run games every Friday night after school. Everybody would come over, and that was our social time when we get together and play D&D all night, And that is by far the best thing about it, is getting to be with your friends and doing something. You're not just sitting there watching a movie or playing a video game or something like that. You're engaging in these adventures, telling these communal stories, and all this kind of fun stuff.
How about you, Eddie? How about you? What does it mean to you for playing D&D?
Yeah, the biggest thing is just the social aspect. You might have noticed I kind of just sit here quietly the entire time. But yeah, I don't really personally play myself very often anymore, but it is a good way to just meet up with people face to face, because I play a lot of video games. And yeah, like even with voice chats, it's not the same as actually being in a room with people, just being able to interact with them and have fun together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You, Aaron?
What does Dungeons and Dragons mean to you? Well, I mean, like, I think the big thing is it's kind of just always been a part of my life in terms of like some of my best friends. Like, I met one of my best friends because of Dungeons and Dragons. His mom's kind of weird. We lived in this condo, and she would throw little parties for the kids around the condo. And I happened to be walking around the condo, and she was throwing this sword fight competition. And so all these kids had they made their own shields and swords, and I just happened to be walking by, and they're like, "We're short a player. Can you get in here?" I'm like, "I don't have a sword." They're like, "You could borrow one." I'm like, "Okay." So by the end of it, long story short, I won the crown. I got, it was great, But she had a son that's a year younger than me, and she basically like forced him to be my friend and was like, "Why don't you two play Dungeons and Dragons?" I'm like, "What's Dungeons and Dragons?" Here we are, and here I am now. So it's kind of always been a part of my life, and just kind of one of those little things. It's always been like, when Dungeons and Dragons wasn't cool, I wasn't scared to be like, "I play Dungeons and Dragons and I don't care."
Awesome. That's amazing. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the events that are happening in the city. And I would just want to hear one more time from you guys. Where can people find you guys on the web? All that fun stuff.
Hey, so you can find us on Twitch. We stream at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Just type in Ray Gun Wizard, and it'll take you there. And on our YouTube, Ray Gun Wizard has all of our archived videos. And then Ray Gun Wizard on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well.
Nice.
Awesome. All right, Chelsea.
Oh, I get to take it away for our second break of the evening. So, as Dan mentioned earlier, we are a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, which also has several great affiliate podcasts, one of which is The Otherwise Show. So, The Otherwise Show is created under the auspices of the Ribbon Rouge Foundation. It's a variety podcast dedicated to empowering diverse communities living on Treaty 6 territory by sharing stories of their lived experiences. The team behind Otherwise is made up of artists, activists, youth, and civilly engaged Edmontonians who want to highlight Edmonton's ethnic, linguistic, and cultural diversity and bring about positive social change. Among the hosts are Ahmed Nomadic, Edmonton's poet laureate, community builder Karen Tang, and Morenike Olaushebikan, founder of the Ribbon Rouge Foundation. If you'd like to learn more or to subscribe to the podcast, you can check them out at theotherwiseshow.com.
Awesome. Okay, so we have a few events that are happening in the city here that I'd like to talk about. And one of them, oh my goodness. So by the time this actually launches, this event will have passed, but I want to make mention of it. Keyforge. I don't know if have you guys ever heard of this Keyforge?
Mm-mm.
So Keyforge.
Tell us all about it, Dan.
Keyforge is a new it's a, I would like to say collectible card game, but it's not. It's it's a collectible deck game. Each deck is unique.
Ooh.
And this is coming up from Fantasy Flight, and I'm super excited about it. So there's a bunch of launch events that are happening. One's happening over at Apti Games. So I'm just saying on November 15th, if you guys are interested in kind of Magic the Gathering, all that kind of fun stuff, I think that this game is going to be the next big one. So
Fantasy Flight makes good games.
I want to go get this. I'm as soon as it's released, I'm heading down to go and pick up a deck or a few. On November 16th to the 18th, we have DPX, which is happening, which is this weekend. And once again, when this episode airs, you guys will have missed it. But I love to talk about this because this is Direct Play Expo, and it's just going to be a lot of fun. Weekend of gaming, and this is happening at 8426 Gateway Boulevard. And you guys can get tickets at redkeycard.com. Or just go on Facebook, look up DPX, or I think they have a website, and I don't know what the website is right now. I'll find it later. I'll put it in the show notes. KefCon is also happening on November 23rd at the Queen Mary Park Community League, and this is happening November 23rd to 25th. If you like board gaming, it's gonna be a good time. So that is happening. And this is a 3-day board game event, which, if you like board games, this is a place to go. And we have on November 24th, Extra Life is having their after party. And this is happening at Extra Life Edmonton. There's no real address here. Hudson's, Canada's Pub at West Edmonton Mall. You got to RSVP for this. Look on Facebook and look at Extra Life Edmonton's page, and they have it underneath their events there. Moving along to December 5th, we have Ed the Sock War on Stupid Tour. If you like Ed the Sock, which who doesn't like Ed the Sock? This is happening at the Union Hall. Go check that out December 5th at the Union Hall. It's going to be fun. All right.
Can I just sidebar for a second? I just have to say that I love every time you talk about the Ed the Sock, the event. You use the same phrase. Who doesn't love Ed the Sock?
I have not had a chance.
But you use it because it's so true, but it makes me giggle every time because you say the same.
Nobody has challenged me on this, so I keep saying it. That's why. Nope, nobody said, no, I don't like Ed the Sock. So there you go.
And on that note,
that is it. So I want to thank you guys so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thanks for having us.
One more time, where can people find you?
All right, so you can find us at Twitch. We stream at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That's under Ray Gun Wizard. And on YouTube, type in Ray Gun Wizard to see all of our archives. And social media, Ray Gun Wizard.
Awesome. Well, that is all the time we have for this episode of the Nerdcast.
Where can people find us, Dan, if they want to see the event calendar or double check some of those great things you were talking about?
Yeah, you guys can find us over at our very own website, northernnerdnetwork.com. And you just threw me off because I had everything lined up. I want to thank everyone who listens to the show, and if you can, we ask for everyone to share it on social media. The Northern Nerdcast is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATV, and is produced by myself, along with Chelsea Thompson and Trina Schessel. You can find more information about the Northern Nerd Network by checking us out on our Twitter at Northern_Nerd, on Facebook.com/Northern Nerd, on the YouTube channel, Northern Nerd Network, and on our very own website, NorthernNerdNetwork.com. That's all the time we have, and I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Nerdcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.
Laser vision. You got 2020 vision though, because I did the dying light checkup, but I can't do that.